there's an unspoken pressure many of us carry. The pressure to look like we know what we're doing. Not just to be okay, but to appear okay. To sound confident even when we're unsure. To look composed even when we're overwhelmed. To give the impression that we figured life out, even when we're still trying to understand ourselves. Somewhere along the way, many of us learned that being put together feels safer than being honest, that clarity is more acceptable than confusion. Confidence is rewarded more than curiosity, that struggling quietly is better than admitting you're still learning. So we learn to hold ourselves together even when we're tired. We keep going even when our body is asking us to pause. We present answers even when we're still sitting with the questions. We smile through uncertainty. We perform strength while privately craving rest. We downplay our confusion so we don't look behind. And over time, that performance becomes exhausting. Because the truth is, having it all together was never a requirement for growth. It was simply a standard we absorbed without questioning. A quiet rule we followed because everyone else seemed to be doing the same. At some point, you may start to notice something uncomfortable. The harder you try to appear okay, the less space you have to actually become better. Because when all your energy is spent maintaining an image, there's very little left for learning, experimenting, or growing. Perfectionism has a way of disguising itself as responsibility, as discipline or maturity. It sounds like, I just want to do things right. I don't want to mess this up. I need to be more prepared. But underneath that voice, there's often fear. Fear of being judged while you're still learning. Fear of disappointing people who expect more from you. Fear of being seen before you feel ready. So instead of allowing yourself to grow in real time, you hesitate, you delay, you overthink, you wait for clarity before taking action, even though clarity often comes through action. And slowly, without realizing it, the need to have it all together becomes the very thing holding you back. Letting go of that need doesn't mean becoming careless. It doesn't mean lowering your standards. It doesn't mean giving up on growth or ambition. It means releasing the belief that you must arrive perfectly before you're allowed to begin. Progress has never required perfection. It requires honesty, consistency, and the willingness to show up as you are, not as who you think you should be. There's a difference between striving to grow and pressuring yourself to perform. One allows room for learning. The other leaves no space for mistakes. Somewhere in the middle of all this pressure, many of us were told a phrase that sounded empowering at first: fake it till you make it. And in some ways, that advice was meant to encourage courage, to remind us that confidence often comes after action, that you don't need to feel ready before you start. But over time, that phrase became misunderstood. For many people, fake it stopped meaning practice and started meaning pretend. Instead of building skill, people built appearances. Instead of growing capacity, they maintained an image. Instead of learning openly, they performed confidence. And the time and energy that could have gone into genuine growth was spent trying to look like they already had it all figured out. Now, that kind of pretending creates a fragile sense of stability because it's based on keeping up a version of yourself that isn't real. Growth doesn't ask you to fake arrival. It asks you to be honest about where you actually are. There's a difference between stepping forward bravely and living in quiet denial. One of the quiet dangers of trying to have it all together is how easily it leads you to chase becoming someone else. You start measuring yourself against timelines that aren't yours, against strengths that aren't natural to you, against achievements that don't align with your values or season. And without noticing, your focus shifts outward. Instead of asking, what am I learning? You start asking, how do I compare? Instead of developing your own rhythm, you try to keep pace with someone else's life. But growth doesn't work like that. Everyone is walking a different path, with different capacities, different responsibilities, different wounds, and different starting points. What looks like confidence for one person might be avoidance for another. What looks like speed for one might be burnout for someone else. When you chase someone else's version of becoming, you slowly lose touch with your own. This is where self-awareness becomes essential. Self-awareness isn't about harsh self-criticism. It's not about constantly pointing out what's wrong with you. It's about understanding yourself honestly, without judgment. When you're self-aware, you stop forcing yourself into roles that drain you. You stop copying paths that don't fit your life. You stop mistaking pressure for purpose. You begin to recognize your strengths, not to inflate your ego, but to use them wisely. You acknowledge your weaknesses, not to shame yourself, but to manage them intentionally. Self-awareness allows you to grow with yourself, not against yourself. And growth that works with you lasts longer than growth built on pressure. There's something else we rarely talk about when it comes to the pressure of having it all together. It's how early we learned to hide. Many of us didn't decide one day to perform strength, we adapted to it. We learned that being capable earned approval, that being calm made things easier, that not needing too much kept us from being a burden. So we became good at coping, good at adjusting, good at carrying things quietly. And while those skills helped us survive, they can quietly limit our growth if we never outgrow them. Because coping is not the same as healing, and functioning is not the same as being fulfilled. You can be doing everything right and still feel disconnected from yourself. You can appear steady while slowly drifting away from what you actually need. That's often what perfectionism protects. Not excellence, but avoidance. Avoidance of discomfort. Avoidance of vulnerability. Avoidance of admitting that something needs to change. And this is where the phrase "fake it till you make it" deserves a closer look. There is a version of it that encourages courage, showing up before confidence fully forms, trying before you feel ready, believing growth is possible even when doubt exists. But there is also a quieter, more damaging interpretation, one that asks you to live ahead of yourself, to perform a version of life you haven't yet built internally, to wear confidence while neglecting the inner work that sustains it. When that happens, energy gets misdirected. Instead of investing time into learning, healing, and strengthening your foundation, you spend it maintaining an image, protecting a story, holding together something fragile. And that's exhausting. True growth doesn't require you to fake your way through life. It asks you to be honest about where you are and intentional about where you're going. That's why self-awareness matters so deeply in this season. When you are self-aware, you stop chasing growth that isn't yours. You stop forcing timelines that don't fit. You stop measuring your life using tools that were never designed for your path. You begin to notice what drains you, what energizes you, what patterns keep repeating, and what you've outgrown. And instead of shaming yourself for those realizations, you use them as information. Self-awareness helps you refine your focus. You lean into your strengths without apology. You address your weaknesses without denial. You grow strategically, not reactively. And that kind of growth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. It's steady, grounded, and honest. Letting go of the need to have it all together doesn't mean giving up direction. It means choosing alignment over appearance, depth over speed, truth over performance. And when you do that, you create a life that doesn't collapse under pressure because it's built from the inside out. The need to have it all together often keeps us silent when we need support. It keeps us busy when we need rest. It keeps us composed when we need honesty. But growth isn't a solo performance, and strength isn't proven by how much you can carry alone. Sometimes progress looks like saying, I don't know yet, admitting you're still learning, asking questions without embarrassment, taking a step back instead of pushing forward, allowing things to be messy while you figure them out. That doesn't make you behind, it makes you real. Letting go of perfectionism can come with a quiet grief. Grief for the version of yourself who believed that being flawless would keep you safe, who thought holding it all together would earn love, approval, or security. Letting go means admitting that strategy didn't work the way you hoped, and that realization can feel tender. But on the other side of that grief is freedom. Freedom to be real. Freedom to grow at your own pace. Freedom to stop performing, start becoming. Progress is rarely linear. It doesn't move in straight lines or clean chapters. Some days you'll feel grounded, other days uncertain. Some days capable, other days fragile. All of it counts. You don't need to have it all together to move forward. You just need to stay present with where you are. If this season of your life feels overwhelming, if you feel like you're still piecing things together, if clarity hasn't fully arrived yet, don't beat yourself up. You are allowed to be a work in progress without apologizing for it. You are allowed to grow quietly, to learn slowly, to change your mind, to evolve without explaining yourself. Progress doesn't demand perfection. It asks for patience. So if you're listening to this and feeling the weight of expectation to be healed, successful, confident, certain, I hope you hear this clearly. You don't need to have it all together to be worthy of where you're going. You don't need to look composed to make progress. You don't need to rush your becoming. You are allowed to arrive gradually. And maybe the real work of this season isn't fixing yourself, but learning to walk forward without pretending you're already there. That is progress. That is growth. And that is more than enough. If something in this video resonated, don't rush past it. Sit with it long enough to ask yourself, where am I trying to look ready instead of allowing myself to grow? And if you're finding yourself in a season where letting go feels unfamiliar, you might want to revisit my last video on starting again without pressure. It speaks to what it means to begin gently, without forcing clarity or rushing growth. I'll leave the link on the screen and in the description for you. If you feel comfortable, share one area of your life where you're learning to release perfection and choose progress instead. And if this space feels grounding to you, if these conversations help you slow down and listen inward, you're welcome to stay. Like the video, subscribe, and walk this journey with us. Not toward perfection, but toward a life that actually feels like your own. I'll see you in my next video.